with you. Hey everybody, let's go ahead and get started. It's a few minutes after 3 o'clock. It's Tuesday. This is when we get together. We do a career call. We talk about all sorts of interesting topics relevant to your corporate career, what you got going on, where you want to go, your goals, how you get there, that sort of thing. This week we're talking about raises and bonuses and RSUs and stock options and things like that. We're talking about them because we're in November now. For most people at most companies, come the end of December, or in December, you're going to be working on your annual review form. Your management is going to be going through the pay cycle stuff, you know, kind of in that December, January timeframe. And so like this is your last couple of months to really influence your review and influence your compensation. So this is a really timely topic, and it's normally something that a lot of people don't think about until you actually start writing your review or you're done with your review. And that's really too late if you really want to impact it. So this is a really good time to be thinking about it, really good time to learn about it, refresher for a lot of you who've been in corporate America for a little while. But we'll talk a bit about how you can use this knowledge to your benefit here as kind of get through the definitions of these things. So we'll probably do, I don't know, 10 or 20 minutes talking about the topic here. Well, then we'll open it up for questions. You can pop in, you can ask whatever you like, you can ask about this stuff, you can ask about comp, you can ask about reviews, annual reviews, how they work, you can ask about how to write your annual review, you can talk about something completely unrelated, but within kind of corporate America, your career, and just anything you want to talk about, get guidance on, get ideas on, that sort of thing. But the people that are here, we're here to help you, we're here to give you ideas, and so you should feel safe to ask this stuff and get real good, honest answers from people who've been there and who've been managers and who've been on teams and who had great success and people who failed miserably and all of that. So, okay, let's go ahead and get talking about raises, bonuses, RSUs, and stock options. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to describe each of them for you, just so that you know what they are. If you're new to corporate America, particularly early in your career, you may not have been exposed to all of these, and having the knowledge of what these are is really helpful for what we'll talk about afterwards. Things like how to figure out what compensation you want, how to figure out how to influence that compensation and work with your manager, and then also, you know, if you're later in your career, how to think about the compensation changes you've been given in the past and what they mean, so that you can also take that and apply it to kind of where you are in your career and what you want. Okay? Okay. Let's get started by talking about a salary increase, which is really a raise. You'll hear people in HR talk about base salary. You'll hear managers talk about base salary. This is really the amount that you're going to get paid every single month, you know, kind of regardless of what happens with the company, regardless of all of that, right? So when people talk about a raise, what they're really talking about is a change, an increase, in fact, in your base salary. Now, base salary is really thought of as kind of like a level set, like you're always going to get this. But of course, if a company isn't doing very well and it's really not looking good for the company, your salary can go down too. Like you can be told, hey, your salary is going down. If you want to continue to work here, that's great. If not, it's time to walk because your salary is going down. Most people don't think about that though. You know, some of the kind of more famous situations of salaries going down, a lot of pilots had their salaries go down right around the downturn as a whole lot of airlines had a whole lot of excess capacity and things like that. So we're really talking about the raise side of this. A raise on your base salary is really an increase in the kind of no matter what pay that you get. And what it really signifies is that your manager, your management, they recognize that you're giving a bigger contribution to the company than you have been in the past. In general, I would say, as long as your company is doing okay, you'll kind of see your base salary move with inflation. That's in theory, in economic theory, how this is supposed to work. If inflation goes up, your salary is supposed to go up. That's not necessarily what the economists want, but that's generally what will happen. Okay, so there you go. So that's a little bit about raises and what they mean. Let's talk about bonuses. So bonus is very different from a raise. A bonus is a one-time payout. It's going to happen one time on a specific date. It's a set amount of money, and you walk away with that check. Now, before you get all excited, you're not going to get the entire check amount, and there's generally two reasons for that in corporate America. The first is that the federal government taxes bonuses at the maximum tax level, and then you work it out basically at the end of the year when you do your personal taxes, and if you overpaid or whatever, it all balances out at the end. So the federal government's going to get their cut of a bonus. The other thing is, if at your workplace you've got any benefits or 401ks or things like that take out a percentage of your salary, a percentage of your pay, they're generally going to be taken out of your bonus as well. And so here's a pro tip for you. The pro tip is that if you want to get more of your bonus as a check, as sitting in your bank account, then what you do is about a month, be safe, you can do it at 2 months. You can also do it at 1 month. About a month ahead of the bonus payout date, you want to go in there and you want to set all of your deductions that you have control over to 0%. So like I would always go into my 401k, set the 401k to 0% withdrawal for that month. And I would then do the math to make sure I was still putting in the max on my 401k. But that way that bonus check came through and I got more of that bonus check. So a bonus is really recognition for kind of like one-time, good job, good delivery kind of work. Maybe you worked on a high-profile project. Maybe you delivered some very specific things that had corporate value that year. The bonus is really recognition of those one-time things. It's not an ongoing change. It's not recognition of an ongoing change in your value, which is really important to understand, because a lot of companies will talk about bonus and bonus targets and percentages and amounts and all that as if you can expect it, when in fact you absolutely should not. You should never bank on your bonus showing up because it might not come through. You might not get a bonus in a particular year. And one of the primary reasons is that this is about what you did in that year and whether or not your management saw fit to give you a one-time compensation for that. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Let's talk about RSUs, or restricted share units. So RSUs, this is just a really complex name for stock that is given to you a little at a time over several years. And so the word share is in here, and that's talking about a share of ownership in the company. This is typically a public company term. If you're working for a private company, you may also receive restricted shares, but generally an RSU is going to be something you get at a public company that's got exchange-traded stock. You'll hear more things like ownership share and things like that when you're at a private company that holds the stock shares internally among private investors. So the interesting thing about RSUs is that you'll be given them, so let's say you're given 1,000 RSUs this year as part of annual review season. That's 1,000 shares of company stock that the company is committing to give to you. However, there's all sorts of terms on the side that you need to be aware of. For example, they're going to give them to you a little at a time over a certain number of years. So let's say the example is you're getting 1,000 RSUs with a 5-year vest, is what you'll hear. So that means that you're going to get 200 a year for 5 years. So you're not going to get any right now. You have 0 this year. When you get to next year, you're going to get your first 200, and you'll go 200 apiece until you have control of all of those shares. There's another kicker here, which is that if you leave the company, generally any shares that you have not been given already, that are not vested because you hit that 1-year mark, that annual mark where they give you more, any shares that haven't vested, they're gone. You don't get them. They weren't yours in the first place, because the way that RSUs work is that you're giving them over time. You're not giving them up front. And so now RSUs are stock. And so when an RSU vests, you literally own that stock. And so when it comes time to sell that stock, or you can convert it to cash, you can do other things with it. You're going to get taxed at the time that you execute those shares. So that's kind of how an RSU works. Now, what RSUs mean for you if you're being given them? So since RSUs are a long-term thing, a long-term give, they're really an indication that your management wants to keep you. They want you to stay at this company because basically what they're doing is they're putting a piece of cash out there. They're putting out shares of stock in the future that you're going to get. So it's essentially increasing your total compensation in those future years. And so it's really an indication that a company wants to keep you, and they want to keep you long-term. They see really good value in you long-term. And so if you're getting RSUs, you should feel pretty good because this is future compensation your manager wants you to stick around. So let's talk about stock options. This is the last one on our list today. Stock options are a lot like RSUs. They're generally going to vest just like RSUs, where you get them over a certain number of years. But there's a pretty key difference in a stock option to RSU. So an RSU actually is a share. When you're vested in a single share of an RSU, that is your share to control. If that stock went down from the point where you were given that stock, that RSU, then you still have some value in it, right? A stock option is different. In a stock option, it is simply what it says. It's simply the option to purchase a share, and it actually comes at a certain price. So you might be given 1,000 options at $25. Well, if in a year, when that first set of 200 options vests, if the stock price is $5 higher than that, then you're going to get $5 per share that you control. That's what you're going to get out of that. If the stock is lower than whatever that strike price is that's specified when you're given it, then you have nothing. You're not going to go exercise that option because it was the option to buy at a certain price, and there's no point in exercising an option to buy at a certain price when the stock is lower than that price. You're just giving money away. So a stock option is definitely that kind of long-term future employment, it's that same kind of vote of confidence in you longer term. It's generally a cheaper option for companies to give out, and it also puts the motivation on you to help to contribute to the company in a way that results in the stock increasing in price. So whereas with an RSU, you get money no matter what, with a stock option, you're only really going to end up with money if the stock goes up. You also need to watch out for both, or for options. A lot of times if an option has vested and you have control over that option and you leave the company you're working for, you generally have to exercise the option within a certain number of days from the time you leave. It's typically 90 days. And if you don't exercise the option within that time, then it's gone. So there's some more interest there in the stock option category, but it's really the same kind of compensation as an RSU in that it's a forward-looking kind of compensation. So there we go. So we talked about what a raise is, what a bonus is, what an RSU or restricted share unit is, and what stock options are. So now this is where it really gets interesting, because now that you have this knowledge, there's some cool things you can do with it. You can look back at the compensation you've been given in the past, and you can make an assessment on what your manager was trying to tell you. So, for example, if, let's say last year you got no salary increase, you got a bonus, and you got no shares or stock options, no RSUs or stock options. So generally what that means is that you didn't have a good year, right? Your contribution to the company wasn't seen as anything better. You may have gotten a bonus, you may have gotten a small bonus or a big bonus, but that was a one-time payout, and you got no longer-term kind of looking compensation. That's really a message that either the company didn't have any money to give you, or you really weren't doing very well compared to your level expectations or your peers or however your company determines your contribution compared to others. So we could look at another setup here. So let's say you got a little bit of raise, you got a little bit of bonus, you got a lot of stock in either RSUs or options. Well, that probably means that the company is really emphasizing the long-term value of you and wanting you to stick around long-term. You might already be high in your salary band. There might not be a lot of room for the company to give you more salary, but they want you to stick around long-term, and so they gave you stock options or RSUs. You also see that really commonly in newer companies where they don't have a whole lot of cash to give, but they're happy to give stock options and ownership share and things like that. So, and then you can interpret all sorts of other different situations as well, however you like. So that's one of the cool things about having this knowledge about how compensation works is you can interpret what you've been given in the past. Now, again, let's come to a pro topic now. So if you want to, depending on where you are in your career, you might want different things. Depending on where you are in your life, you might want different things from your compensation. So, for example, let's say that you're warming up to buy a house and you're saving up your down payment for a significant loan. So you're trying to generate a lot of cash. Well, if you're waiting for your bonus to come through, your compensation to come through, hey, why don't you just go have a conversation with your boss about how you'd love to get your compensation and bonus this year, right? Instead of having to wait month over month over month for your little for your salary increase, which is going to come monthly over a longer period of time, why don't you just let your manager know that, hey, you would like as much bonus as your manager can give you, and you're willing to forego the other compensation because it's not really a value to you. You're trying to buy a house, right? Maybe you're early in your career and you really don't care about the bonus. What you're trying to do is you're trying to build up a salary base, a long-term salary base, because you're thinking ahead, you're thinking long-term. So you're like, hey, I don't really want a bonus. Manager, appreciate all the work. I know you like the work I've been doing because we're having one-on-ones, right? I'm really fine foregoing the bonus and getting salary if you have that flexibility. Maybe you think the company you're working at is going to have great future value that it doesn't show right now from a stock standpoint, right? Maybe you see this stock going up significantly in the future. And so maybe you tell your boss, hey, I don't really care about salary or bonus. What I'd really like is I'd really like RSUs, or I'd really like options. Now, why would you do this? And why would your manager want to support you in this? So the way your manager generally has to deal with compensation is that they generally get a budget, and that budget is spread out across all of their direct reports, all of their team, all of their second level, all of that. And they have to look at everybody's individual situation. They have to look at everybody's contribution, and they have to figure out how to split that all up. So they'll get a budget for salary, they'll get a budget for bonuses, they'll get a budget for RSUs or options. And so, maybe your manager has this situation where they need to give a big salary increase to one person and you want a big bonus. Well, hey, no problem. That fits right in with what they're trying to do, right? Maybe you're looking for options and they have options, but they don't really feel like there's a whole lot of people on their team that they want to give the options to because they don't see a whole lot of long-term value in their team. And so you showing up saying like, hey, give the options to me. They might be happy to do that because it might let them do all sorts of other things with their budget for salary and bonus. And so it's really important to think about where you are in your career and what you have going on in your life and what you want. And then it's really straightforward to just have the conversation with your manager about what it is you would prefer in that compensation cycle. Your manager is generally going to be really open to talking about it, and you may or may not, your manager may or may not be able to do that for you, but they're going to be really open to it. And if it helps them out, then you can bet that they're going to do that for you. I've definitely had that at different points in my career as I was upfront and open with my boss about what I wanted to see in my compensation, where I wanted that to go. It came through that way every single time. So that's the topic for today. That's all about raises, bonuses, RSUs, and options, about how you can look at your compensation package and what that means and interpret your changes in compensation, about how you can look at your career and your life and what you want, how you can have a real open conversation with your manager about how you'd like to see that come through when it's time to get your compensation change or package for the following year. Now, of course, all of that assumes that you're doing pretty good at work, that you're a solid performer or a great performer, because if you're not, you're going to go have that conversation with your boss, and it's going to be pretty uncomfortable because your boss might not be planning on giving you anything, or you might be on a performance improvement plan, right? So you need to be in sync with your boss. You need to be having one-on-ones. You need to know where you're at. And once you're at that meeting expectations point from there up, you can have a real productive impact on what you want to do and what you want to get out of your compensation. All right, so there's our Tuesday 3 p.m. topic. A few more people have joined, so I'm going to wrap up, and we're going to flip to your questions. So I'd love to hear if any of you have stories about compensation and how you were able to positively influence that to what you wanted. I'd love to hear a couple of those as we switch into the Q&A period here, and then we'll just open it up. Whatever you've got going on, if you want to talk about one-on-ones with your manager or a situation you've got going on at work or working with a coworker or whatever, just go ahead and unmute and ask your question and get in here, and we'll try to give you some guidance or ideas if that's what you're looking for.